There is another truth that many empaths discover too late. Not everyone feels guilt the way they do. Not everyone loses sleep wondering if they hurt someone. Not everyone spends hours replaying conversations in their head, searching for mistakes. The empath assumes everyone has the same heart, and that assumption becomes one of their greatest sources of pain. Because they give people the benefit of the doubt long after the evidence says otherwise. They forgive before apologies arrive. They understand motives that should never excuse actions. They stay loyal to people who have repeatedly shown disloyalty, not because they are foolish, but because they can see the wounded child inside almost everyone. And while this ability is beautiful, it can also become destructive. Jung understood that every gift carries a shadow. Compassion without boundaries becomes self-sacrifice. Forgiveness without wisdom becomes permission. Love without self-respect becomes suffering. Many empaths spend years trapped in this cycle. They become emotional caretakers, the peacemakers, the listeners, the rescuers. Friends call them during crises. Family members lean on them during difficult times. Coworkers unload stress onto them. Partners depend on them for emotional stability. And slowly, almost invisibly, the empath begins carrying burdens that were never theirs to carry. At first, they feel needed. Then they feel responsible. Eventually, they feel trapped. What started as kindness becomes obligation, and obligation slowly turns into exhaustion. This is where anxiety often begins. Not because the empath is weak, but because the human mind was never designed to carry the emotional weight of an entire world. Imagine trying to hold 10 heavy bags every day. At first you manage, then your arms ache, eventually you collapse. The same thing happens emotionally. Every ignored boundary adds weight. Every unspoken frustration adds weight. Every act of self-betrayal adds weight. One day the empath wakes up feeling exhausted for reasons they cannot explain. Their body is tired. Their mind is tired. Even their spirit feels tired. And yet, from the outside, everything looks normal. This is why so many sensitive people struggle with loneliness, not because nobody is around them, but because very few people truly know them. Everyone knows the version of them that helps, the version that comforts, the version that gives, but almost nobody knows the version that hurts, the version that cries in silence, the version that feels overwhelmed, the version that desperately wants someone else to say, "You don't have to carry everything alone." But Jung believed that healing begins when we stop identifying with the mask we show the world. He called this mask the persona. The persona is the role we play to gain acceptance. For some people, it's the achiever. For others, it's the tough one. For many empaths, it's the caretaker, the one who is always okay, the one who always understands, the one who never asks for much. But no mask can be worn forever. Eventually, reality catches up. The emotions hidden underneath begin demanding attention, and when they do, life often feels like it's falling apart. In reality, something deeper is happening. The false self is cracking. The real self is trying to emerge. This process can be frightening. People often mistake transformation for destruction. When old beliefs collapse, it feels like losing yourself. When familiar relationships change, it feels like losing your world. When you stop being who everyone expects, it feels like becoming a stranger. But Jung would say that this discomfort is often a sign of growth, because growth rarely feels comfortable while it is happening. Think about a seed buried underground. From the outside, nothing seems to be happening, but beneath the surface, everything is changing. The shell breaks, the old form dies, something new begins to emerge. Human transformation works much the same way. The old identity must crack before the authentic self can appear. This is why many people experience profound personal growth after their most painful experiences. The breakup that shattered their heart, the betrayal they never expected, the failure that embarrassed them, the loneliness that forced them inward. At the time, these moments feel unbearable. But years later, many realize those experiences changed the direction of their lives. Pain has a strange ability to reveal truth. When everything is comfortable, illusions survive. When life becomes difficult, illusions collapse. You discover who truly cares. You discover what actually matters. You discover strengths you never knew you possessed. And perhaps most importantly, you discover yourself. Jung once suggested that people will do almost anything to avoid confronting their own soul. Many distractions exist for this reason. Constant entertainment, endless scrolling, busyness, noise. We live in a world filled with distractions because silence forces us to hear ourselves. And many people are afraid of what they might find. The empath often feels this fear more intensely than others. Because they feel everything deeply, their joys are deeper, Their sadness is deeper, their love is deeper, their disappointments are deeper. Yet this sensitivity is not a flaw, it is a form of perception. It allows them to notice what others miss, to recognize emotional truths, to sense authenticity, to detect hidden pain. The challenge is learning how to use this sensitivity without becoming consumed by it. A healthy empath learns an important lesson. Not every problem is theirs to solve. Not every wound is theirs to heal. Not every battle is theirs to fight. This realization can feel uncomfortable at first. Many empaths associate self-protection with selfishness, but they are not the same thing. Selfishness says, only I matter. Self-respect says, I matter too. The difference is enormous. One creates isolation, the other creates balance. As the empath matures, they begin making different choices. They stop chasing people who repeatedly walk away. They stop explaining their worth to those determined to misunderstand it. They stop shrinking themselves to make others comfortable. They stop apologizing for having needs. And something remarkable happens. Their energy returns, their confidence returns, their peace returns, not because life becomes easier, but because they stop fighting themselves. Jung called this journey individuation, a complicated word for a simple idea, becoming who you truly are, not who your parents wanted, not who society expected, not who fear created, who you genuinely are beneath all the conditioning. This process takes courage, because authenticity comes with risks. Some people will misunderstand you, some relationships will end, some opportunities will disappear, but what remains will be real, and there is tremendous freedom in that. The freedom to stop performing, the freedom to stop pretending, the freedom to stop carrying identities that no longer fit. Imagine how much energy is spent every day trying to be someone else, trying to meet impossible expectations, trying to gain approval from people who may never offer it. Now imagine redirecting all that energy toward becoming yourself. That is where true power begins. Not power over others, power over your own life, power over your choices, power over your direction, power over your future. This is the transformation Jung pointed toward. The wounded empath becomes the conscious empath. The exhausted empath becomes the empowered empath. The lost empath becomes the authentic empath. And the people who once mistook kindness for weakness suddenly realize something they never expected. The person they thought would always bend has learned how to stand. The person they thought would always tolerate disrespect has learned how to walk away. The person they thought would always remain silent has found their voice. Not a louder voice, a truer voice. And that voice changes everything. Because once you know who you are, manipulation loses its power. Once you know your value, rejection loses much of its sting. Once you trust yourself, fear loses much of its control. The world may still challenge you. People may still disappoint you. Life will still bring uncertainty. But you will face those experiences differently. Not as someone searching for permission to exist, but as someone who knows they already belong. And perhaps that is the deepest lesson Carl Jung offered. The goal of life is not to become perfect. It is to become whole, to embrace both strength and vulnerability, both light and shadow, both courage and fear, to stop running from yourself and finally come home to who you are. And when that happens, something extraordinary occurs. The empath does not become hard. They do not become bitter. They do not become cold. They become complete. And a complete person is far more powerful than a broken one ever imagined.